Today, we have a legend in our studio, a 20-year industry veteran, a cinematographer based out of Toronto, Canada, who has done commercials with companies like Kellogg's, TD Bank, RBC, and Loblaws. He is revered and respected by big industry brands like Matthews, Aputure, and CRLS. I cannot wait to dive into his mind and how he operates and the story of how he got to where he is today. I am so honored to present to you Barry Cheong. So without further ado, I'm your host, Danny Lau, and I am here with my co-host, Anthony Valcinas, and this is the Apple Box Podcast. All right, cool. So we have Barry Cheong in the studio today. Cool. It's really awesome having you here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I remember I first watched you on YouTube, I think, making videos, right? Was that?
Yeah. I had a very brief stint where I flirted with that. It was very short-lived. But it's funny enough, a lot of people know me from there, despite the fact that I barely made anything, frankly.
But you did a lot of stuff for, like, you're talking about Aputure, I think, and CRLS. I think CRLS was mainly.
Yeah, I did. I went back to that during COVID. So I produced like 2 videos of, many, like 2016. I don't remember when I started that. Just really out of the frustration of not seeing that kind of content. Flash forward now, like 5 or 6 years later, and I think that space is much more filled out.
Yeah.
But at the time, I sort of found myself sort of frustrated that there wasn't a lot of content makers making content that was maybe geared to more working professionals, from what I could tell. There was a lot of very rudimentary, basic stuff, which is obviously very important to have that content out there and cater to those people who are maybe still learning the very basics.
Yeah.
So I'm not shitting on that at all, but for the working professional, I thought there was not so much of that content out there.
Yeah, there was a gap.
There was a bit of a gap, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I really kind of started making stuff just to kind of fill that void somehow.
Yeah.
But again, it was very short lived. I quickly realized it was more work than I.
It is.
It's so much work.
It's a full-time job
thing. Yeah, it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time
right?
thing,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a space to do it in, so I would tear apart my house to do it, just like. Fellow filmmakers, what that process is like.
Spend the whole day doing it.
Yeah, dragging everything in, setting it up by yourself, pulling it all.
It's not like you can leave it there because it's your house. You got to do stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So it was very short lived, but yeah, a couple opportunities that come out of that short lived stint, and and during COVID, I sort of went back to it a little bit because the same kind of thing. There was kind of a little bit of a gap in the knowledge of CRLS.
Yes.
And I thought it was kind of fun and important to share, and I had nothing better to do for 2 months. And
honestly, I'll be honest, I bought CRLS because of that video.
Oh, cool. That's
so Lightbridge will be probably pretty happy to hear that. Cool. But I remember seeing that video, and I remember going to this guy and be like, "Yo, you heard of these things?" Yeah. And I told him all about it.
Yeah,
I was like, "It's crazy what you were doing with it," and I was like,
totally.
Look what it could do.
Yeah, and it's kind of exploded since then.
Yeah,
and certainly not because of me, but just
I think you had an impact. I think that's even how I found out about them too. Actually, before we talked about it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
so how did that begin? How did you get your relationship with Aputure, CRLS, and Matthews? I know those are the 3 major ones.
Yeah, honestly, it's always been kind of an organic thing. I've always just kind of gone out and just done stuff and sort of talked about stuff because I genuinely believed in the product.
Nice.
It was never in the vein of trying to be sponsored or to get free stuff.
Yeah.
Or it was just really out of the excitement of using the stuff and wanting to share, which inevitably is all I've really been interested in at the end of the day in terms of social media and that presence is just sharing, and I think that's the wonderful thing about our business, especially in the cinematography sort of side of things. I mean, other aspects of filmmaking as well, but there's a wonderful sort of community that is open to sharing, and I think as time goes on that I see more and more of that, and so if I can sort of contribute in some small way, I'm sort of happy to do it.
But how did they find you? How did that relationship begin?
Each manufacturer was a little bit different. With Aputure, I was using the stuff very early on, like 120D Mark 1 kind of thing.
Oh, like even the old, what was it, the old 1x1 panels that they had too? The B7C
or the Tri-8s.
That's a bulb. What am I saying?
Oh, that's even
older Tri-8s before the Tri-8s. H672,
628 or
something like that.
Something like that.
Like plastic, right?
My apologies to the guys that
with the NPF battery back.
Listen, they're ashamed of those too. It's okay.
Yeah. I walked into Henry's one day and like they're the guys there like, look, you got to check this out. And my friend of mine worked there, still works there.
Yeah.
And he'd show me the stuff, and that's kind of when LED was just starting to get a little better, and the price was sort of not so crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it never really was, frankly. But anyway, it was getting better. And
Yeah.
It was the more important part. And but it was still kind of panels. And then when the 120D Mark I dropped as a sort of single source,
changed the game.
It really did.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of brightness level, that was already daylight balance. That wasn't, thousands of dollars. Which the only alternative was HMI really at that point. So I bought one. Took it on a job. Actually went to Ottawa on the job, and frankly, the head actually failed on me.
No,
it died on me on the day.
Holy.
And luckily I had some backup stuff that I brought with me, and then I think I can't remember I reached out to them, or I don't know what happened. It all got sorted out and everything worked out fine. And then I guess I don't know if that's the reason I got on their map, but
you were like an early adopter that they recognized. I
suppose
guess,
so.
right?
And then they at that time they also were, to their credit, they were really trying to expand on their social media presence, which they've always been, fantastic at doing. They really embraced.
Now they're killing it. Yeah, it's amazing what they're doing.
It's really a combination. I've thought about the other day sort of the reason for their success, and it's certainly there's many aspects to it, but I think one of them was building a community very early on.
Yeah. And Ted played such a great part.
Oh, huge.
What an amazing personality for them.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so at the time they were starting these like regional Facebook groups. So there'd be like Facebook Canada and Aputure Canada, Aputure, I don't know, Italy, Aputure US, Spain, like all these different countries, and they were looking for people to kind of represent or manage each group on Facebook.
Interesting.
To maybe spearhead community, or if there needed to be some local support, or just to sort of be a little more grassroots on the ground, where each area was, and so they asked me if I was interested in helping them with sort of helping them with East Coast Canada essentially. I mean, there's not a lot of responsibility, but it basically entailed managing the Facebook group, and just if people had questions, or if there was any sort of local support that
in return for gear, I'm assuming.
No, not even really. They were very kind and did send me some stuff, for sure, over the years, but I don't think that initial agreement was predicated on.
You did it for the love of the
exactly
the
same
passion.
thing. I really just was like, I'm happy to help, like if I can help make this the community better, or help the product be better, or in any way I can, I'm happy to do so. And I've always sort of kind of had that attitude with manufacturers, and I think that they appreciate it as well. So that's kind of been the basis of most of my relationships with various manufacturers, has been on that notion.
And they just kind of I guess because of the amount of, like, you've been in this for over 20 years, you said, right? So I just back then, like, you don't get a lot of freelance. At least I wouldn't know, because I wasn't here 20 years ago doing this. I started when I was 30, so I started late in life.
Okay.
But I'm assuming back then there wasn't a lot of cinematographers using Aputure gear back then.
No, I mean, it was all like your real classic brands. It was the Aries and the Kinoflow and the Mole Richardson and the LTM and those kind of brands. And those were the only people in town really making equipment, and they still are, and still making some great stuff. But it's only in the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years have we seen an explosion of these.
Quite an influx of it.
Up and coming.
Now it's like,
brands.
I feel like it's getting that extra leap now, where we're seeing 1200Ds, and then these cob lights are getting RGB on them now. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we've never been more blessed and spoiled, frankly.
Yeah,
in terms
really,
of variety,
honestly,
and capability as well.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So when you approach your work, let's talk about your actual approach in work in terms of how you prep. I know you were telling us that you don't book too far ahead of time, so you must have some kind of really efficient way to prep your work. What's your approach when it comes into pre-production and post-production?
I mean, as in terms of prep, I try to get involved as early as I can. You know, if I can even get involved in the quoting stage, I like to sort of do so. If a producer has a deck, even if it's preliminary, I really encourage them to send it to me and, get my thoughts about that. It doesn't always happen, but if that conversation does happen, I'm happy to have it and sort of get a peek at sort of what the early asks are and maybe how the budget is sort of shaping up. Because if I can sort of affect the efficiency of a job very early on, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then obviously getting the deck or the boards or the script as early as possible is important. Just so I know sort of the basis of what the ask is. And so I try to put my eyes on that as early as possible and start giving it some thought. And then the next step is to really speak to the director and get their thoughts about if they have any specific ideas of how they want it to look or feel, or if there's any references that they wanted for me to look at or for us to talk about. If there's anything specific about the way they want to move the camera. Some directors are a little bit more technical. I do a lot of work with photographers actually who are making that jump to being video directors, and so they come from a very or can come from a very technical background as image makers themselves, and so I'll sometimes ask if they have any specific ideas about what camera platform they want to use, lenses, if they've had a positive experience in the past and want to repeat that recipe. I'm open to hearing from them about that. And then really after that, I go into just breaking it down and thinking about what the shots are. Specifically, I utilize a lot of tools that are available, apps and stuff that are available to everyone, cine calculators, previs tools. I do a lot of math and calculations.
So you're very calculated in terms of how you.
If it requires me to be.
Okay. It makes sense in product, especially in food.
Yeah, in food as well, or I do a lot of stuff in studio where you're doing set builds, and you need to know ahead of time how big does a wall have to be.
Right.
So that if you're on this lens and this move, you're not going to see off the wall, for example. And so it becomes a very technical calculation to figure that out.
Right.
And to be able to advise art department and various other departments what it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's not something you can or should be leaving on the day.
Right.
Or leaving, or having departments isolated in their own thoughts about what that should be. Because, you don't want to show up on the day and realize you don't have enough wall. Or it's, and it's amazing, actually, funny enough, how much it can happen if you don't sort of
imagine.
If you don't step in and sort of early on and say, hey, this is what I think it needs to be.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of a lot of field of view calculations I do often.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And previs is very useful for that as well. If you need to move, the camera has to dolly or something, and how big does that wall have to be, and will it even fit in the studio?
Right.
Once you sort of have that figured out, that informs how you're going to light it.
So are you really picky with in terms of choosing the really specific lens with a specific look and a specific sensor? Are you the type to dive in deep into the technical specs?
I mean, inevitably, it's all to serve what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty agnostic about what I'm choosing to use. I really would like to think that I'm choosing stuff based on its ability to do what we need it to do first. Ultimately, budget is a large part of it.
Yeah.
As much as cinematographers, we would like to use or have the ability to choose anything for any project we're using. It's not a reality. So budget is a reality of almost every job, and so you have to weigh that. But yeah, no, I mean, I have things that I like, but ultimately I try to keep an open mind about what it is going in, and so that I'm sort of hopefully picking the best tools for the job. But really just the key thing that I think I try to do in prep is give myself that time to think about it.
Yeah.
That's something I maybe learned later in my career. I think there are situations where I think sometimes people need answers from you right away, which is understandable. Jobs happen very fast, and the turnaround often is very limited. But I've tried to learn to be protective of that time to think about it.
Right.
Which I think is important.
Yeah.
To really sort of not be on the spot, to sort of walk away from it, sit in your office, your desk.
You want to go in and you want to execute a game plan that, like, you want to be prepared. You're very much like the type that needs to come in and know what you're doing.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone who's a little bit more spontaneous. There's DPs out there who's kind of like, we can leave some things up in the air and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Would you say that you're just the opposite of that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. I think you have to be flexible. Of course, things will change on the day, and you have to build a plan that can be flexible. I think.
Yeah.
Because the needs on the day will ultimately change depending as more people put their eyes on it.
Yeah.
A director might sort of see something else and want to alter a plan. Obviously, client and agency in the commercial world can have different ideas. Hopefully, you've sort of discussed it enough in pre-production that there are no surprises.
Right, yeah.
But the reality is it still does
It's
happen.
not always that it doesn't happen that way.
So you have to kind of, you need to be flexible.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly very aware of that, but I do like a game plan. I don't like to go in unprepared, frankly.
Right, yeah.
And for me, having that game plan is about thinking about it as much as possible, but thinking about it, maybe I'd go away for a little bit, go back to it, think about it some more. Cause I always find that when I'm able to do that, the idea always evolves, and ultimately I end up with a better result,
right,
and a better plan.
Yeah.
Like I'm rarely going in with plan A. I'm going in with plan D, E, F.
Yeah.
Because it's been revised so much.
Yeah.
And I test a lot.
Oh, okay.
I test a lot.
Yeah,
and I make sure I share those tests during prep if there's enough time.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a repeat thing where I've done multiple times.
Yeah.
If it's like a unique creative deck and on a commercial or something, I do test as much as I can.
Interesting.
I'll put up a lens, I'll put up a camera, I'll take a tape measure, I'll do as much mock-up as I can.
Yeah.
Because there's so much you learn in those tests that you would have never even thought of.
You don't want to get caught off guard on set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you really there's a lot that reveals itself as you do those tests, and so it's important for me to do that. So that's become a very important part of my process.
Do you have like a specific gear set that you love, like certain light that you're like, this is my favorite light? Do you have like a specific gear that you go to?
It's a great question. I mean, really, again, I like to think it's situational, and that I'm pretty open and agnostic about what I choose. That being said, I own my own camera package, and I have a small van of lighting and grip. So
Nice.
I am an owner operator.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not a guy that, just is constantly building new gear list on every job. I do use a lot of my own stuff. But in terms of favorite tools, I don't know. I mean, I can list what I have in my truck of stuff, and because it's been curated for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely what I own is not random.
Right. You bought it because you like it.
You
see the value in it.
Yeah, and it serves a very specific purpose, or in my case, multiple purposes.
Right.
I don't like tools that are maybe do one thing really well.
Interesting.
I would have to say,
So more flexible. Tools.
Yeah. Partly that is out of practicality. Like I only have so much space in my van, and I'm frankly out of space. And so I need tools that can do multiple things. To have a thing that's taking up space in a vehicle that only does one thing is not efficient for me. I like hard light, frankly.
I noticed that in your work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the biggest things that I compliment all the time. Whenever I bring up your work, I look at it, I'm like, especially with tabletop or food or anything like that, tend to be a lot of just, a lot of soft light used often. And I was like, the one thing I like about Barry's work is the fact that he's not afraid to use hard light. I think it gives it a distinct look.
Yeah, I always, some things, of course, you have to light totally soft or very soft.
Yeah.
But whenever I look at it, my sentiment is always to be like, there's something missing here.
Yeah.
And generally that is some bit of hard light somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, and that might not be the main source of light, but somewhere, you know, something a little bit more specular is something that I tend to lean, you know, into naturally.
Right.
And so, so I have, you know, tools that can craft that sort of in an effective sort of way.
CRLS, I guess, is one of them.
CRLS is a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of Lico, you know, sort of style lights.
Kind of like the 60X, is it? 60X?
60X with I use with the mini spot. I've got one of those. Obviously the 600D with the spotlight is a big thing. Joe Lico's, like any of, you know, that kind of tool. You know, it's really like a scalpel, if you will.
Yeah.
In the lighting world.
Yeah.
A lot of precision there. And obviously you're starting with a large consumption of light, which is always great as well.
Yeah, because you can always just soften it and add layers as you go along.
It or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Yeah, but I noticed that you do have a distinct style. I'm a big fan of it, honestly. I think it looks amazing. Hard light is actually one of the things that, like, you know, working with Anthony, he knows, like, I always say we need some hard light in here, and I think part of it's probably inspired from the fact that when I was growing up in this industry, I was watching your stuff, right? And I was looking at your stuff. So it's really cool.
Thank you.
And I want to go back to, like, your beginning of your career, talking about starting up.
Right.
Like, what made you become a cinematographer and how did you get into that path?
Well, so I started right around when I was about 16. I think I knew I wanted to work in film in one way or another. I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in film. Actually, initially, I thought I kind of wanted to get into computer graphics.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
So I thought I would get into like CG work or something of that nature. You know, I was always technically minded, but also had a creative sense. You know, and so I thought that would be a really great marriage of those two skill sets. And so I thought I would get into CG, and then somehow, I don't know, I had a change of heart and had this instinctual thought that I would get into production. I would be on set.
Was there a moment that made that happen, that brought that up?
Honestly, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't tell you.
What were you doing at the time, like when you were 16 onward? Like what were you doing that maybe led to that? Like
that led to that initial thought, you mean?
Or just like getting into the industry, like production side of things?
It happened fast, actually. So I kind of caught the film bug when I was about 16, and by 17, I was working in the industry.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
So I my second last year of high school, so I was probably 17 at the time.
Yeah, 17.
I took a co-op program. So I did a high school co-op program, and was placed. I was tasked with getting placed at a film-related, establishment for the semester. And the common thing at the time was to go work at Rogers local cable TV.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Which I don't know if it even exists anymore, frankly.
I think it still does, surprisingly.
Okay.
Yeah. Sadly, yeah.
And so that's kind of the default thing, I think, for most kids.
Everyone was like, I want to work for that. Yeah.
Who wants to be in film? You'll go there. And so that was kind of the first option that was presented to me was you can go to the Rogers cable TV. And I was like, well, I sort of had the hindsight to know that, no offense to Rogers Cable TV, listen, but that's not really gonna get me anywhere.
Right.
That's good insight.
Yeah. So somehow I was smart enough to know that, and and despite the fact that it probably would have been a little more hands-on or whatever,
right?
I was insistent that I to get placed rather at a production company, even if that meant getting coffee and photocopying or whatever needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so I was very insistent to my teacher, and she was like, okay. And so she kept hunting, and she eventually found a placement at a company called Revolver, which was a music video production company, which kind of, I think they still exist, but they're not quite doing music videos anymore.
Right.
And they were a subsidiary of Partners Film Company, which was a big commercial production company at the time. This is around 2000. When is this? No, this is probably like 99, 2000 maybe.
Wow.
And so I got placed there, and I did a semester there, and I sort of worked really hard and tried to impress the right people, and kept my head down, and did all the things that were asked of me, and I think that impressed enough people, and I was always very very technically savvy. I was good with computers and spreadsheets, and I could do all these things, and I think some producers sort of took note of that, and started to give me an opportunity to kind of work alongside them as an office PA. So I would work on pre-pro books, like putting pre-pro books together, or I would help with petty cash. or I would, I would photocopy or get all the paperwork ready for production, and whatever tasks needed to be done around the office. And then eventually that sort of evolved, and a couple producers took me under the wing and sort of kind of became a coordinator / assistant producer. And so I would, work on these jobs, music videos typically, a couple commercials as well. And I basically did that for about a year or two, went back and finished high school, and then worked, freelance in the summer on these productions. And then was still also interested in camera. And so I was this young kid making pretty good money, I would say, at the time. I went from working minimum wage at Dairy Queen, working at a day rate in production, which was I won't divulge the numbers, but it was quite a jump in pay. And again, it wasn't even about the money. I was just happy to be in the industry, frankly. But I was making some pretty good cash and still living at home, and was still very much interested in cinematography. And I bought a little mini DV video camera and started just messing around shooting small format video, because that's kind of all that existed at the time. So I shot doing little projects of whatever I can on mini DV by myself, or I think my co-op teacher asked me to produce a video, of all the kids that were currently in the program that semester, and go to their placement and interview them and their experiences. So I did stuff like that, and then also at the time, shortly after, all my friends that were also interested in film got into film school, and so they were now in film school, and so I would go out and help and work on little projects with that they were doing in film school. Because I applied to Ryerson and actually got waitlisted. Never got in. Too.
Yeah. But I did night school, and then eventually dropped out of that. So
so I applied to Ryerson, their program there, and for whatever reason was the only school I applied to. I didn't sort of think to apply anywhere else. I think you're given like 3 options or something. Without paying extra or for the application. But I, for whatever reason, didn't apply anywhere else. And so September came around. I finished high school, and I didn't have anywhere to go. I got waitlisted and didn't get in. And so I basically went straight back to work, and basically worked freelance as a coordinator for another 2 years.
Wow.
Up until I was about 21. And then right around that time, I was kind of frankly burnt out, and I didn't see myself becoming a producer or a PM and sort of following that path of working in production in that department. And large format video didn't exist at the time. And so, if you wanted to be a cinematographer seriously, I knew that I had to go learn how to expose negative.
Wow.
Because I shot a lot of mini DV video, small format video, but I basically hadn't exposed any negative.
Right.
And any serious cinematographer at the time,
that's what it was.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
It was 35 or at least 16.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done any of that. And, frankly, it was too cost prohibitive to do it on your own.
Right. Yeah.
And so I thought the only way I could really go and learn that skill set was to go back to school. And so it's at that point that I applied to film school again. And I applied to Humber and Sheridan, and I got into both programs and decided to go to Humber College.
Oh, nice. Which one? The one in Lakeshore?
North Campus.
North Campus. Okay, nice.
Yeah. And so I did the 3-year program there.
Yeah.
And then, just from day one, just focused all my energy into lighting and camera.
Interesting.
Nice.
And got to shoot some 16 and did that.
16's fun.
16 was, it was fun. And the funny thing is, ironically, after I graduated, about 6 months after I graduated, a year after I graduated, the Red 1 came out.
Oh, wow.
And I basically have shot film like once, I think, since I graduated. So, and then so I graduated, and then I pivoted to camera, basically, and assisted a little bit, did a lot of sort of corporate video as assistant, and was lighting and assisting, and did a little bit of that for about a year maybe, while still also shooting as much as I could. And then really after that, started shooting full time essentially.
Did you have a moment, like a big break, like a gig that was like, oh wow, like I guess I'm doing this now? Like, was there any gig that made you feel like I'm a DP now,
Not really. I mean, I kind of, funny enough, had that moment at my sort of 10-year mark of doing it. Wow. It's only at 10 years that I sort of start to feel like I had some idea about what I was doing, frankly.
Yeah.
But early on, no, there was no real like big break. It was always these like very organic little projects that I would, just
kind of built up slowly. Next thing you know, you're like, I guess I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah,
Right?
and lucky enough to be making a living at it relatively early as well. I really count my blessings that way.
Yeah.
I didn't really struggle. I didn't go through the starving artist phase, luckily. Very grateful to my parents that I could stay at home. They didn't kick me out.
Yeah.
But also, I was able to always make a little bit of money, enough to sort of get me to the next job very early on. And obviously blessed that people gave me the opportunity, frankly.
Yeah. Because one of the most common things that I hear all the time between DPs is like, you can't rush this craft, like you can't just learn it overnight. And I think there's a lot of times this narrative sometimes that like, if you do this, your footage will become this, and someone like you is a proponent of working for so long and getting to that point where like you've been doing it for 10 years when you start to realize that you are now doing this. Do you believe that, given the tools today and the climate that the information that we have online today, that someone necessarily has to go through 10 years? Or do you think that, this is something that you can, or you have to put in your time and it's just one of those things that you have to progress in?
It is the latter. It is, it's like, I don't remember who said it, but it's like the 10,000 hour notion, right? It's like to get good at anything, you need to put 10,000 hours
Our last
in.
guest just said the same thing.
It's, cinematography, filmmaking, it's a craft. You have to constantly work at it, and you have to work at it in real life. You can read books, you can watch YouTube videos, and certainly education and the educational side of this business is more bountiful than it's ever been. And I think that's overall a very good thing. Yeah. And the point of entry now is easier also than it's ever been, which I think ultimately is a good thing as well. But even when you get in, you still have to work hard. It doesn't negate working hard, and it doesn't negate, working at your craft, as much as you humanly can. Yeah. And so, you don't get good. You don't get good at just like, just by reading about it. You have to. It's like
and thinking about it either,
or thinking about it. It's like any skill. It's like cooking. It's like, I don't know,
carpentry
or carpentry. It's like any one of those skill sets or those crafts. Essentially, you have to put the time in, and you will get better the more you do it. Yeah, I really do believe that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, I think, sometimes even like lighting breakdowns, there's a lot of those out there these days, like people straight up telling you exactly where the lights are going, what lights they're using, what camera and lens they're using. And I always tell people, it's like, you can't replicate people. You can't try to be the next Barry Cheong. You got to be you. And I think that's a very important part of the craft, is being authentic.
Yeah, and I think you also have to look at it holistically, and you have to look at each situation in a different way. In a new way. Obviously you can apply what you know already to that situation, but it's about asking yourself, what is that situation, and what am I ultimately trying to achieve here? And as time goes on, you will build a Rolodex of skill sets that you can apply to that situation. And another thing you have to learn, I think, also is taste. You have to learn to be a tastemaker. Yeah. Which is something that the expression I actually learned from Kazi, who's a colorist on YouTube. He sort of talks a lot about about being a tastemaker, right? And ultimately, that's what you're trying to teach or learn, I suppose. Yeah, is you can learn all the technical skill sets about exposure and lighting and camera movement and this and that,
principles,
and the principles, and that's important.
That's very important.
You have to have that basis.
Absolutely.
But eventually you get to a point where you're just trying, you're learning to be a tastemaker. You're learning how to know what's good and what's bad, and to also have a point of view as well. Yeah. And to have a perspective of what you like and what your style is, and also how to work within that collaboratively with another person or a team as well, because it's filmmaking is ultimately a team sport.
Absolutely is. Yeah.
When you're building that like tastemaker for yourself, like, are you finding inspiration in the world, in other art, in things that you're digesting outside of the industry to inspire that?
Definitely. And I think it's important to be a well-rounded human being in this business as well. I think it's easy to get consumed by just singularly filmmaking. Right. I think there's a notion of obsession that is important in getting better at your craft, but I think it's also important to be interested in other things. and to look at other references. So definitely, I'm always looking in the real world. I'm blessed to live in a space that has some really interesting light. And so
Yeah,
I'm
I
always
see
sort
that
of
on Instagram.
I'm always studying that and being very geeky about what the color is and what the exposure is and what the contrast is. So I'm always looking to that, in real life. Obviously looking at a lot, I look at as many other people's work as possible and try to chat with other filmmakers and other colleagues. You try to watch as much as you can. Social media, obviously now, Instagram can be a great source of inspiration and ways to like see other people's work. So I try to sort of, absorb as much as I can and see what I, again, sort of use that sort of taste-making barometer to sort of see what I gravitate to and what I maybe don't as well.
Do you believe that it's important to be diverse in your work, or do you believe in niching down in a specific style or even specific industry within the industry, if that makes sense?
I think there's something to be said about being a specialist,
Right.
And I believe that, and I know I've heard several other people say the same thing, and I think if you can be a specialist, you can stand out. I think there are, more so than ever before, there are so many people in this business coming to this business, which is great, but I think it's a much more crowded space now, with a lot of competition. And so I think you need to do whatever you can to stand out, and to, to just sort of stand out and amongst the crowd. And I think being a specialist allows you to do that. If you can specialize in food or specialize in beauty or cars or something that's a little more niche. Not to say that if you're interested in other stuff, you shouldn't go out and explore that as well. But I think if you can have a couple of things that that you're known for, and put yourself at the top of a list, so that you're considered for projects. I think that's not a bad thing. So yeah.
When you spoke of competition and just how saturated this market is and competitive the market can be, how do you navigate around that, both mentally and physically?
You try not to think about it too much, frankly. There's so many talented people out there. Certainly more talented than I think I am, frankly.
I think we're all humble in that nature, but
I think so. Maybe. I don't know. But
It's a fine line between am I being humble? Is it realistic? What the reality is?
I mean, everyone's going to be everyone's going to be their own hardest critic, for sure.
Yes.
And so, if you think about it too much, it is a little bit stressful. But joking aside, I think for me, it's always been an organic thing. You go into each project, and you do as good of a job, as best of a job as you can. Being a good human goes such a long way. Just don't be an asshole. Be a good person.
For sure.
And I think people appreciate that, and just kind of hope that you leave a good impression enough that you're given another opportunity to work with that person again. And ultimately, that's really been how my entire career has gone. It's always been fairly organic, and so I don't think about as much as, I mean, it happens where you think, how come
it's
I'm
natural.
It's natural to sort of be like, why am I not shooting these kinds of jobs, or why did I not get to work with that same producer? Why did they hire someone else for that job? Why wasn't I up for it? And you have these natural thoughts, but ultimately you kind of have to let that go and hopefully be confident enough in your abilities, and hope that you get another phone call.
And speaking of your work, let's get into some of your work. I know you sent me some of this stuff over here.
So this was a commercial that we shot on location, fairly small budgeted commercial that ended up on the web. It was kind of an interstitial thing playing between YouTube videos and social media. And so the ask was, or the premise of the commercial was a family making pizza. It was pizza night.
Right.
So and just kind of highlighting the product was the main goal. We shot this. When did we do this? Early 2021. So COVID was still very much a thing. So there was a remote director, and it was myself, a producer, and the crew on site, food stylist as well. And what's fun about this one was just getting to be on location to do food. You know, a lot of food stuff I do is in studio, which certainly has its benefits. But I really like shooting on location, frankly.
Yeah, me too.
There's something about a real space and letting the space inform you what you're gonna do.
I love that. Yeah.
Where the light's coming from, the windows. You know, something about a real ceiling. You know, it's like all these elements that you know that really sort of even if you're not seeing it, even if it's like the shot is really tight, somehow you know there's something beyond.
Yeah.
You know, there's a
frame,
beyond the frame. You know. Which you're always trying to recreate in studio, frankly.
Yeah,
to try to remove
it kind
that
of inspires you a little bit as to how you want to even approach the lighting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of fun for me to be on location because so much of my work now is in studio.
Yeah.
And so it was really about capturing this family. So we ended up. The challenge was that there was a young boy who could only be on set for so long.
Right.
It was a sort of a limited time window that we sort of had him available to us, and then we'd have to either go down and have a nap and whatnot. So the thought was to sort of be as efficient as possible when we had him, and then try to get the rest of the coverage when he was sort of taking a nap or just just resting a little bit. And so we ended up going handheld for this.
Is that just for the sake of making it fast and more efficient?
It was and then the other thought from the director was he wanted to be a little more organic. He wanted it
almost
to
like a home video feel.
not home video, but an energy to it.
An energy, right?
You know,
okay.
Which handheld was going to be conducive. In creating, and so easy rig. It was a C300 Mark III, set of Canon C300iii primes.
Nice.
And we kind of just sort of like hosed it down when we had him and just sort of like found these moments. And I think it sort of lent itself to an organic capture. Because of COVID also, it was actually a real family. So it was a real husband and wife and 2 kids. So there was already an innate built-in relationship there.
Yeah, the chemistry's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice. And so just sort of like lit the space as opposed to trying to light very specific things, and then just kind of allowed them to exist in that space, while capturing as much as we can. And we got a lot of great coverage. A lot of it which actually didn't make the final spot because it's only like a 15-second spot.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So much sort of fell on the cutting room floor, unfortunately. But we got a lot of great stuff that way. Mm-hmm. So a couple big lights through the window.
What specific lamps did you use for?
We had an 1200 par, HMI par, and we had a 400 Joker. Mm-hmm. Given the choice, I would have wanted a little bit bigger, frankly, but that's kind of where the chips fell, and that's what it was. But we had CRLS outside the window.
Nice.
So we had a 100 by number 2 that the 1200 D was in, or sorry, the 1200 par, and the 400 was going into another 50 by number 1 or number 2, I think.
Yeah,
through the windows.
So not quite like fully diffused, but not fully not zero.
Yeah,
essentially. Yeah. Right.
So a little bit of diffusion on it.
Yeah, just a slight bit.
Yeah.
A touch.
And then I did end up putting some CRLS inside the space as well.
Is that what you used to bounce back to fill faces, or did you?
No, I found that the stuff through the window wasn't hard enough.
Right.
Because what I ended up doing for the sake of speed, but it also helped me hold the window detail a little better, was to put N6 in the camera. If I had a little more time and some more crew, I maybe would have put up some more neg fill everywhere.
Right.
But to get the ambient level where I needed to quickly, I dropped N6 in the camera. So that brought the base level to where I needed to, which also actually really helped to hold the windows a lot better.
Yeah.
Because had I negged everywhere and not put N6 in the camera, the windows obviously would have been hotter.
Yeah.
But the adverse effect of putting N6 in the camera is now the lamps have to fight through N6.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it wasn't quite as punchy as I hoped it to be. And so the solve was putting a 300D Mark II with a spotlight with a bunch of smaller CRLSs into a corner that we were never going to see.
Interesting.
And so with less fall off.
Right.
And so that inevitably gave us the punch that I was looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you do like a multiple like CRLS type of thing with one source? Is that something that you
did
with that?
Yeah. So
to get as much sources as you can.
Yeah, we basically had one beam of the spotlight into the corner, and then I think we put like 2 or 3 different reflectors into that same source.
Right.
So the great thing there is that it's homogeneous in terms of its color, and obviously very efficient. That it's one lamp, 3 reflectors, as opposed to a bunch of smaller lamps.
Yeah. Did you use any soft sources at all to help this?
Yeah, we ended up putting. I did put a Rosco DMG SL1 with a snap bag, just bounce into the ceiling.
Nice.
At a cooler color temperature, just to
bring out the ambient.
Just to bring out a little bit of ambience, but more so actually to put a little bit of color in the ambience, because I actually didn't want too much ambience. I wanted to play it a little bit down, as if it were like end of day, evening kind of feel. But it just helped to put a little bit of color into the ambience or into the shadows. Yeah. Just so there's a little more color contrast, which I like to do.
Yeah. Did you have any challenges going into the shoot at all? This is pretty straightforward, and this is your wheelhouse, so you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we unfortunately didn't get to do a full scout. We had to sort of peek through the window scout.
Oh, interesting.
The homeowner I think was on vacation or something when we had to do our scout.
Yeah.
So we weren't fully able to like walk in the space, which I always prefer to do if I can. And then obviously there was some COVID things at the time to sort of work through, and little minor challenges in the morning. I think the Wi-Fi wasn't working that morning.
Interesting.
Which didn't help the remote call-in aspect of the job, but we quickly resolved that.
So like the director was like on an iPad or something the whole time?
Yeah, over Zoom call, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Zoom call, camera feed going to Zoom, that kind of thing.
Wow, interesting.
Which I've done a lot of. Now it's sort of easing up. And clients are returning to set, so that's become less of a thing. But that was a whole workflow challenge that we had to figure out.
I can imagine,
Did you have much involvement in the post-production side of things?
I did. I actually ended up coloring the spot as well.
Oh, great.
Which is something I've been doing more of recently. Which I really enjoy. I love color. I would never call myself a colorist, but I've taken it upon myself to learn and build a bit of a skill set doing it.
Do you think that's really important for DPs these days, to be able to at least understand the basics of coloring?
I think if you can learn it in the sense of being able to have a common language with a colorist, I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
I think where it's become helpful for me is working on jobs that don't have the ability and the budget to go to a proper facility to have it colored. I mean, I would always support that idea first. If you have the ability to go and work at a post house with a colorist, someone who is doing this work day in, day out, I would encourage that first and foremost, always. They will always be able to bring something to it that is unique and do it at an efficiency that I can only dream to do.
Right.
But I think where I learned or took it upon myself to learn that skill set was because I was doing work where the post was kind of throw a light on it by an editor and it goes out and
quick turnaround
or
social stuff, whatever.
Or it's like it's not really going through a proper color and again, no offense to editors either. It is a different skill set.
It has its place. Yeah, exactly.
I don't expect every editor to also be a great colorist.
Yeah.
It really is 2 separate jobs.
Absolutely.
It should be 2 separate jobs.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of cases the work was going out that way, and I started to actually have this like feeling of like, is it me? Is it like is it something that I'm not like, why doesn't my stuff look like other people's stuff that I've seen?
Right.
And is it a case of I'm not doing something correctly? Is it the way that I'm lighting something or exposing something, or is it my choice of camera lenses or something that I'm missing?
Is that missing piece? And it's the same. I went through the same exact process. I was in there like, I don't understand why my stuff looks so bland compared to everyone else. And I was like, when I learned about color, I'm like, what's coloring? I got to learn about waveforms. I was in there like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to figure it out, and it kind of all pieced together.
And so it really was like, okay, like let me look at it. So I got very diligent about looking at my rushes immediately. And actually, I still, unless I'm completely exhausted, I still do that now. I go home immediately, dump the footage, ingest into Resolve, and I look at it that night.
Same here. Yeah.
And I will color it.
And sometimes I lose a lot of sleep because of that.
Even if I know, even if it hasn't been signed off that I'm doing the color, I will do
it too. Yeah. Just to see what my image has become.
Yes,
Like, yeah.
totally.
What
And
it can become.
What it
yeah,
can be, yeah.
absolutely. And it's a process I enjoy thoroughly.
Me too, I
you know,
love that.
and I love doing it.
Yeah.
And that's actually something I can share as well. Is,
Yeah.
is I started generating what I call like contact sheets.
Oh, okay.
So what I'll do at the end of every job, again, whether I'm doing color or not, is to build a thumbnail of stills of all the rushes,
Oh, nice.
and then and I really sort of built that. I build them really to share with the crew after the fact. I think it's a nice thing to sort of share with the director,
Yeah.
or share with the gaffer, or the people that have been creatively involved in the project, the art director, prop stylists. And in sort of some sneaky way, also a way to sort of like sell my ability to be able to color something. Be like, hey, look how good this looks, guys. Look,
Maybe the rate can go up a little bit.
Like maybe if you don't have any plans for color, I can do it.
Yeah.
And again, like everything, it's not even about the money.
Of course.
It's about I want the work to be good.
Yeah, because it affects your work. We understand the value of what it does to your work.
Yeah. And so it started there. It started about like, am I doing something wrong? Oh no, wait a minute. It's fine. Like I'm definitely in the pocket. Like I'm not so obviously there's always things you can do better, but I'm not so far off that I'm completely missing something.
Right.
All of the building blocks of what needs to be there are there. It just needs to go through the proper process, which has been a slow process of educating people about that and trying to get involved where I can, but obviously being respectful when I can't.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't make sense to be. But it's something I enjoyed doing. So in this particular spot, I did color it. I did go home and look at the rushes immediately and put together a thing. And I sent the director the next day. I'm like, hey, look at everything turned out great. Like,
That's
and
cool.
really wasn't even about trying to scheme my way into the situation. Was like, hey,
Just excited about it.
just excited about it and wanting to share the images that we made together.
Yeah.
And kind of just put it as a casual aside, like, hey, if no one has been thought about doing color or there's no plan right now, I'd be happy to do so. Let me know.
Yeah.
And I kind of just left it there.
Yeah.
And he kind of got back to me immediately. He was like, oh, I would love if we can have you do it. And I was like, great.
Nice. Amazing.
That's cool.
And it kind of went from there. And so, I sort of ended up doing it.
How'd you get involved with this project in the beginning? Like, is it through an agency contact? Did the director reach out to you?
It was a relationship. It was a relationship I already had with the producer.
Okay.
So it's a producer that I've known for many, many years. And then she reached out to me and said that she had this project, and off we went.
Nice.
Yeah.
So over the years, all those relationships that you've built up, it
Add
just
up.
keeps on adding up and keeps on going, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very organic.
Awesome. I want to shift over to a little bit about mindset just for a little bit.
Sure.
One of the most common things that people suffer from in this industry, and I want everyone to just kind of touch on it, just get the perspective where you come from, and that's burnout. I think all of us, have, we all know, anyone in the film industry, the hours can be brutal, the work is going to be insane, the turnover can sometimes be unreasonable. Have you ever felt burnout? Have you ever experienced it, and how have you dealt with it?
I mean, I haven't. I'm sure in one way or another I have. I mean, you get exhausted, you get tired, you need. It is important to take breaks.
Yeah.
I've always worked in short format, so I've always been blessed with a fairly healthy lifestyle balance.
So you get to control it a little bit better, right?
Not to brag, but I've never worked in features or television or long format, and that it's tough. I really feel for those people, because it's a grind.
Rigorous,
It's it's long days.
You're gone months at a time,
6 to 8 weeks,
nonstop,
nonstop, and burnout is very much a real thing in that situation. But even in short format, if you can go through that same process of burnout, and you never really know when it's going to hit you. So I think it's important to constantly be resetting and and doing that.
Was there anything that you struggle with then that you find that you're currently struggling with?
I mean, there's always, one thing that I've always, it's an important question. It's an interesting question. I mean, one thing that I've always struggled with and still struggle with, I think, is, and being fearful of, I think, is taking on more, like biting off, what's the expression? Biting too much, biting
more than you
biting
can.
off more than you can chew.
Biting off more than I can
There you
chew.
go.
Exactly.
There you go.
that expression. So
Yeah.
I've always, which I think maybe is why I prep so thoroughly, because
Right.
I don't want to find myself in a situation on the day where I'm overwhelmed and I'm way in over my head.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been fearful of, and I'm still kind of fearful of, frankly, which I think the trajectory of my career has gone a bit slower than others, because I've been a little bit more cautious
Interesting.
about the kind of work I take, and if I feel like, or I felt like it's way out of my element, something I've
Right.
maybe never done before, I have a tendency maybe to turn down the job.
Interesting.
I think a lot of people thrive off of like jumping into the deep end and just sort of like figuring it out. And being uncomfortable.
Right.
And while I don't disagree with the notion, like people say, like you should put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that's how you grow and get better.
Yeah.
And I see the merits in that, for sure, in that argument, and I do agree with it to a large degree. But I know I'm also the kind of person that knows I do my best work when I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Interesting.
If I'm too uncomfortable about the situation, I'm not going to do my best work.
Right.
And certainly prepping and being thorough allows you to get yourself out of that feeling, so that when you land there on the day, you are comfortable.
Yeah.
But it is still something in the back of my head that I deal with, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What kind of gigs are those? The ones that you turn down, the ones that you feel
I don't know. It's
uncomfortable
like
with?
something like I've never shot a car in studio.
Oh, I see.
So it's like if
So,
someone calls and like, hey, I got a job that we got to shoot a car in the studio.
Yeah.
My initial thought would be maybe I'm not the right person for the job.
Interesting.
It's
It's like you're very methodical. Like you really like have a way of working, and it's working for you. So
Yeah.
you just kind of like you ride off of what you know.
Yeah, and I think I think I'm at a place now where I would take that job on. Because I can I know I believe in my process of prep enough
Right.
that
Yeah.
I know that I could, with enough time and enough ability to think about the challenges ahead.
Yeah.
And with testing and being humble and asking other people who maybe done it, that I could figure it out. And so I'm at a point now, I think, in my career where I'm a little more open to taking on those challenges. But I know certainly in the past, it's something that I would be way more hesitant about. And frankly, I mean, that feeling still does exist somewhere inside of me. It's not something that I've conquered completely yet.
Yeah.
Something I actually wanted to mention was I see that you also work with a lot of photographers. How do you find, because this is something that we kind of are still working on, is like the balance between time for stills during the shoot and obviously for the video, and like finding that balance between not letting one kind of fall below the other one in some ways, in terms of level of attention and input, and like
Yeah, I mean,
like a
luckily,
process for that?
well, luckily the jobs I work on are in that hybrid model, if you will.
Yeah.
Or hybrid model of the people involved even. Generally is video focused first.
Yeah.
So I'm rarely in a situation where it's like a split day,
Okay.
where it's photo half and video half. I probably actually have never done any split days, frankly. It's always video focused first.
Okay. And the stills are kind of like an add-on kind of thing?
Basically. And in
That's how it usually goes. Like it kind of
Usually
defaults
goes
to that
way. Yeah.
yeah, and in most cases, the photographer is happy to make my lighting work for their exposure.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, sometimes we'll take a moment and they'll take a moment, and put up a strobe or
Add
something.
a pro photo or something.
But generally, the days are not so crammed that there isn't time to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've luckily never been.
And there's more latitude in the photography side of things to like maybe adjust exposure in post, and with a raw image, it's
Yeah, and most of what we're doing is if they are photographing something, it's still life. So they can go to a fairly slow shutter
Exactly.
and not worry about it too much.
And something else I wanted to mention was vertical, like with the push for
Right.
social content.
Yeah.
We're struggling
yeah.
with like deliverables that are like, we want 16:9, but we
Yeah.
also want the vertical
4:5,
Yeah.
16, it's squares.
Yeah.
Like,
We can't make a beautiful frame for doing all these
Yeah.
different,
Yeah, it's tough. There's no easy way to do it.
Sick.
The reality is, if you can, I try. If I need to, I will ask for a separate take for a different
Yes.
aspect ratio.
That's ideal.
Yeah,
But it's not always happens. Like sometimes
No,
at least we
yeah,
find
to
our
flip the
positions where
camera,
there's
yeah.
like, we don't have time for that. And it's like, you kind of got to go wider than you want. And you'd be like, one's going to suffer. right? Like
yeah,
one of them's going to suffer.
Of course, they're 16:9 and 9:16
It's
are
so
completely
different.
opposite of each other. I mean, literally,
Literally, quite literally.
and
Yeah.
the framing convention is completely different.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
it's kind of nuts to think about it. Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah, if I can take a moment to reframe for that new aspect ratio, I will do so. Shooting open gate on like a if you can, like a mini LF sort of helps a little bit by being in whatever 3.2 or whatever it is, the aspect ratio 4.3.
Yeah.
Helps a little bit so that you're not the split between 9:16 and 16:9
Yes.
is
It's
not
not
so
as
great,
severe. Yeah.
but it's still kind of like it's still pretty nuts.
Still awkward.
weird,
It's still awkward.
Yeah, and I find that even for lighting, like if you're doing a top-down light for a 16:9, you can keep it out of frame. But once you turn the camera, it's like, well, now we gotta
Yeah.
shift everything, and we have the opportunity to bring things in on the side though. But
Right.
it's like, do you have time for that? Right? It just
Yes.
changes everything.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is the reality. It's always going to be a compromise.
Yeah.
Do you think it's here to stay?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going away.
Yeah.
Unless the shape of a phone changes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going away. It's here to stay. Yeah, totally.
So one last question I want to ask you is just for a piece of advice for all the people who want to do this. You're a longtime veteran in this, so I think a lot of people who are probably watching this look up to you and seeing your work. What kind of advice do you have for these people?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great tidbits and things that I've certainly, it's been told to me. I mean, I think, but to sum it up, I mean, I think realize it's a craft, work on your craft, be curious, I think, don't become complacent, really be curious about your craft, whatever that is, if it's cinematography, if it's sound, if it's editing, if it's even something outside of filmmaking, be curious about the thing that you're getting yourself involved in. Ask yourself questions and go and test stuff, go be curious and go do something about that curiosity as well. Yeah. Network, I think, is important. I'm really great that you guys, are doing this and connecting with people. I think you never know when, you need to rely on somebody and ask someone for a favor and it just, this business is so great because of the community. There are moments sometimes where I think I could walk away from it, but the community side of it, I think I would really miss.
Yeah.
Whether it be local filmmakers or getting to meet people from around other parts of the world or manufacturers or whatever it might be. It's a part that I really, really thoroughly enjoy, and so I think go out and find other people that are doing what you're doing and say hello and work on some stuff together if you can. And just try to be nice to people.
That seems to be the common
That's
denominator.
the common
It's
denominator.
Like, just be a good person.
Just be a good person. Yeah.
Love what you do and try to do the best that you can. I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally.
Awesome. Barry,
Yeah.
we appreciate you
Yeah,
so
thank you
much,
for having
man.
me.
Thank you
Awesome,
so
man.
much. That was
Yeah.
amazing information, and you brought so much value to this, man.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right.
a wrap.
That's a wrap. Cut.
Awesome.
Thank you.